Have you ever found yourself in a room full of people, laughing at a joke you don't find funny? Have you ever nodded in agreement with an opinion you don't actually believe? Have you ever muted your own thoughts, swallowed your own words, and adjusted your own personality just to fit in? You do it so smoothly, so automatically you might not even notice you're doing it. But afterwards, when you're alone, a quiet, sickening feeling settles in your gut. A feeling of hollowness, a feeling of profound self-betrayal. You feel like a ghost in your own life, an actor playing a part you never auditioned for, and you're exhausted by the performance. You look at your life, and you see that it is a collection of borrowed pieces. Your opinions on politics are echoes of the podcast you listen to. The clothes you wear are a reflection of the trends you see online. Your goals for your life, the house, the career, the marriage, are they truly yours? Or are they just the standard issue goals that society handed to you? You live in a state of constant low-grade anxiety, the anxiety of the imposter. You are terrified that someone will look closely enough to see that you are a patchwork of other people's expectations, a hollow man, a hollow woman, with no solid core of your own. This is the great secret sickness of our time. We are dying of thirst while standing in the middle of a river because we have been taught to only drink from other people's cups. We have been taught that our own thoughts are untrustworthy, that our own intuitions are naive, that our own desires are selfish. We have been taught, from birth, to look outside of ourselves for the truth. We look to our parents, to our teachers, to our pastors, to our politicians, to the experts, to the consensus of the crowd. We believe that the truth is something that is given to us, a set of rules to be memorized and followed. And so we become excellent students, excellent followers, excellent imitators, and in doing so we commit a slow, quiet, and perfectly respectable form of suicide. But what if this entire way of living is a profound mistake? What if the truth you have been seeking in every book, in every lecture, in every conversation, has been inside you the entire time? What if that small, quiet, and uniquely strange voice inside you that you have learned to ignore is not a sign of your foolishness, but a direct line to the divine? What if the only way to find yourself is to stop listening to the world and to start, for the first time, listening to yourself, even if what you hear scares you? Ralph Waldo Emerson, the great American philosopher who championed the sovereignty of the individual soul, saw this sickness of imitation with a searing clarity. He saw a world full of people who had become copies of copies, who had forfeited their own unique genius in exchange for the thin soup of social approval. And he wrote an essay, a declaration of spiritual independence called Self-Reliance, that was designed to be a thunderclap to awaken the sleeping soul. He knew that the path to becoming yourself was the most difficult and most rewarding journey a human being can take, and he laid out the map. He wrote, "With a power that shakes you to your core, to be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment." This video is not about self-improvement. It is about self-excavation. It is for you who are tired of being a mirror, for you who feel the deep, secret shame of your own inauthenticity, for you who are ready to stop begging the world for permission to be yourself. Today, we will explore Emerson's radical path to self-reliance. It is a path that demands courage. It is a path that will likely make you an outcast. It is a path that will force you to confront your deepest fears of loneliness and disapproval, but it is the only path that leads to a life that is truly your own. Get ready to stop imitating and to start living. Let us speak of this crime you commit against yourself every single day, the crime of imitation. Emerson called it what it is, suicide, a slow, gentle, and respectable suicide of the soul. Every time you suppress your own genuine thought, because you are afraid it will be unpopular, you kill a part of yourself. Every time you dress in a way that is not you, but is designed to gain acceptance, you kill a part of yourself. Every time you pursue a career that your heart rejects but that society applauds, you kill a part of yourself. You are the willing accomplice in the murder of your own genius. You have become an expert at quotation. Your mind is a library of other people's ideas. You quote your favorite author. You parrot the talking points of your chosen news source. You adopt the slang of your social circle. You have become so good at this, you may have even forgotten what your own original thoughts sound like. You live in a world of echoes. You are afraid to speak a word that has not already been spoken by someone else more credible, more intelligent, more popular than you. You have made yourself a secondary source in the story of your own life. Why do you do this? You do it because you are afraid. You are terrified of the judgment of others. You are terrified of being seen as weird, as strange, as wrong. You crave the safety of the herd. The herd has pre-approved thoughts, pre-approved opinions, pre-approved ways of living. To stay within the herd is to be safe, to be warm, to be validated. To step outside of it is to risk ridicule, to risk ostracism, to risk the terrifying cold of being alone. And so you choose safety over truth. You choose conformity over your own soul. You choose the slow suicide of imitation over the dangerous, exhilarating work of being alive. Emerson saw this as the great betrayal. He believed that every single human being has a unique and divine spark within them, a form of genius that is entirely their own. It is your specific way of seeing the world, your unique combination of talents and curiosities, your strange and wonderful intuitions. This, he believed, is not just your own personal property, it is a sacred trust. It is a piece of God, a piece of the universal spirit that has been entrusted to you, and only to you, to bring into the world. And when you ignore it, when you suppress it in favor of imitation, you are not just failing yourself, you are robbing the world of the unique gift you were meant to give it. He wrote, "There is a time in every man's education when he arrives at the conviction that envy is ignorance, that imitation is suicide, that he must take himself for better, for worse, as his portion. You spend your life envying the gifts of others. You wish you had their confidence, their talent, their intelligence. You are so busy looking at their portion that you have let your own portion lie fallow, uncultivated and choked with the weeds of conformity. You have abandoned the sacred plot of land that is your own soul, and you are wondering why your life feels so barren, so fruitless, so devoid of meaning. The reason is simple. You are trying to grow another man's crop on your own soil. The first step, the most crucial step on the path to self-reliance, is to stop looking outside. It is to turn your gaze inward. It is to begin the difficult and often frightening process of listening to the quiet, subtle, and often contradictory voice of your own intuition. You must learn to trust that voice above all others. But how do you do that in a world that is screaming at you to do the opposite? In the next part, we will explore Emerson's radical idea of the divine voice within and the art of learning to trust yourself. If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. So how do you begin? How do you unlearn a lifetime of looking to others for the answers? How do you start to trust the whisper of your own soul when the world is a shouting, deafening mob? You must begin with a radical new belief. You must begin to believe that your own intuition is not random, is not foolish, but is, in fact, a form of divine revelation. Emerson called this the aboriginal self, the spontaneity, the instinct. He believed that beneath the layers of your conditioned personality, your fears, your borrowed opinions, there is a deep, primal source of wisdom, a direct line to the oversoul, the universal consciousness that flows through all things. When you have a sudden, powerful, and unexplainable gut feeling, when a spontaneous thought flashes into your mind that feels more true than anything you have ever read, that, Emerson says, is not just you thinking. That is the universe thinking through you. That is genius, and you have been taught your entire life to dismiss it. Think of all the times you have betrayed this inner voice. You had a bad feeling about a person, but you ignored it because everyone else seemed to like them, and later you were proven right. You had a spontaneous idea for a project, a strange and unconventional idea, but you dismissed it as silly and impractical, only to see someone else execute a similar idea years later to great success. You knew, in your heart of hearts, that a certain path was wrong for you, but you took it anyway because it was the sensible thing to do, and you have been living with the quiet misery of that choice ever since. You are at war with your own intuition. Your mind, filled with the logic and fear of the world, constantly overrules the wisdom of your heart. To become self-reliant is to end this civil war. It is to make a conscious and deliberate choice to honor your own perceptions above all others. It is to say, this thought, this feeling, this intuition that has arisen in me is true. It is true for me. It may not be true for others. It may not be logical. It may not be popular, but it is my truth, and I will honor it. Emerson wrote, "To believe your own thought, to believe that what is true for you in your private heart is true for all men, that is genius. This requires immense courage. It is not an easy path. It means you must be willing to be wrong. You must be willing to make mistakes. You must be willing to trust a feeling even when you cannot logically explain it. The world will demand that you justify your choices, that you provide evidence, that you cite your sources, and sometimes your only answer will be because it felt true to me, and you must be willing for that to be enough. This is not an encouragement of blind arrogance. It is an encouragement of deep listening. It is the practice of getting quiet enough to distinguish between the frantic, fearful chatter of your conditioned mind and the deep, calm, and solid voice of your own soul. The more you listen to this inner voice and act on it, the stronger it will become. The more you trust it, the more trustworthy it will become. You are building a new relationship, a relationship of faith with your own deepest self. But as you begin this journey, as you start to speak your own truth and walk your own path, you will immediately encounter a powerful and hostile force. You will encounter the displeasure of the world. In the next part, we will confront the price of this newfound freedom and why the sour faces of others are a sign that you are on the right track. As you begin to practice self-trust, as you start to live from your own authentic center, you will notice a strange and unsettling phenomenon. The people around you will become uncomfortable. A friction will develop. The smooth, easy interactions you once had will become strained. There will be awkward silences. There will be jokes made at your expense. There will be whispers of concern about you. You will begin to feel a subtle, and sometimes not so subtle, pressure to return to the old you, the predictable, agreeable, and easy-to-manage version of yourself. This is what Emerson called the world's whip. He wrote, with brutal honesty, "For nonconformity the world whips you with its displeasure. This is the price of becoming yourself, and you must be prepared to pay it." Why does this happen? Because your authenticity is a threat. It is an unconscious mirror that reflects back to others their own conformity, their own compromises, their own self-betrayal. When you begin to speak your truth, you remind them of all the truths they have swallowed. When you begin to follow your own path, you remind them of the safe, predictable path they have chosen out of fear. Your freedom is a painful reminder of their own cage. And rather than being inspired by you, which would require them to change, it is far easier for them to try and force you back into a cage of your own. They will not do this consciously. They are not, for the most part, evil people. They are simply acting as agents of the herd, instinctively trying to neutralize a threat to the group's comfortable consensus. The world's whip comes in many forms. It is the sour face of a friend when you express an opinion that goes against the group's dogma. It is the passive-aggressive comment from a family member when you make a life choice they don't approve of. It is the loss of invitations, the sudden coolness in relationships that were once warm, the feeling of being subtly but surely pushed to the margins. It is the accusation that you have become arrogant, selfish, or weird. These are the lashes of the whip, and they are designed to do one thing: to make the pain of being yourself greater than the pain of conforming. This is the great test. This is the moment where most people break. The fear of loneliness, the terror of disapproval, is so deeply ingrained in us that we will do almost anything to avoid it. The desire for the warm, comforting embrace of the herd is a powerful, primal force. And when you are faced with the choice between your own truth and the approval of others, the temptation to choose approval is immense. But Emerson implores you to stand firm. He tells you that the displeasure of others is not a sign that you are wrong. It is a sign that you are finally right. It is a sign that you have begun to matter. A ship that stays in the harbor is perfectly safe, but that is not what ships are built for. A soul that stays within the consensus of the herd is perfectly safe, but that is not what souls are for. He wrote, "Whoso would be a man must be a nonconformist. Nothing is at last sacred but the integrity of your own mind. You must learn to find a new kind of nourishment, a nourishment that does not come from the applause of others, but from your own self-respect. You must be willing to be misunderstood. You must be willing to be disliked. You must be willing to endure what Emerson calls a little hatred, because the alternative is to be loved for being a person you are not, which is the most profound and desolate loneliness of all. But there is another prison you must escape, one even more subtle than the prison of other people's opinions. It is the prison of your own past self. In the next part, we will confront what Emerson called the hobgoblin of little minds. You have begun the journey. You have started to trust your own intuition. You have found the courage to withstand the world's displeasure. But now you face a new and more insidious enemy, an enemy that comes not from the outside, but from within. It is your own past. It is the ghost of the person you used to be. It is your obsessive need to be consistent with yourself. You are terrified of contradicting yourself. You made a strong statement 5 years ago, and now you feel you must defend it, even if your heart has changed. You built your identity around a certain political belief, a certain career path, a certain lifestyle, and now you feel trapped by it, even if your soul is crying out for something new. You are afraid to grow, you are afraid to evolve, because you are terrified that someone will call you a hypocrite. You have become the rigid, unforgiving jailer of your own evolution. Emerson saw this as a profound and ridiculous form of self-tyranny. He wrote one of his most famous and most liberating lines, "A foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds, adored by little statesmen and philosophers and divines." A hobgoblin, a small, ugly and mischievous demon. That is what your need for consistency is. It is a superstition, a fear that keeps you small. You believe that your strength lies in being unchanging, in being a solid, predictable rock. But this is not strength, it is rigidity, and what is rigid is dead. The living thing is fluid, changing, and constantly outgrowing itself. Why are you so afraid of inconsistency? You are afraid because your ego has attached itself to your past beliefs and actions. You think you are your opinions. You think you are your past self. So to change your opinion feels like a death of the self. But you are not your opinions. You are the consciousness that has opinions. You are the river, not the particular shape of the riverbed at any given moment. To be truly self-reliant is to be loyal not to your past self, but to your present truth. It is to give yourself the freedom to be a completely different person tomorrow than you are today, if that is where your genuine intuition leads you. Emerson declares, "Speak what you think now in hard words, and tomorrow speak what tomorrow thinks in hard words again, though it contradict everything you said today." He tells you to not be concerned with the shadow on the wall, the memory of your past self that others hold of you. To be great, he says, is to be misunderstood, and often you will be misunderstood most of all by those who thought they knew you best, because they are still in love with a version of you that no longer exists. This is true freedom, the freedom to grow, the freedom to be a work in progress, the freedom to contain multitudes, to be contradictory, to be gloriously, humanly inconsistent. When you let go of this foolish hobgoblin, you feel a tremendous sense of liberation. You are no longer defending a fixed position. You are simply expressing the truth as it reveals itself to you in this moment. But this leads to the final and most important question. This path of self-reliance, of nonconformity, of inconsistency, does it lead to a life of bitter, arrogant isolation? If we are to reject society, to reject the opinions of others, to reject even our own past, are we doomed to be alone? This is the fear that holds so many back. In our final part, we will explore Emerson's distinction between vapid society and true, soulful connection and find the answer. We have arrived at the most critical question, the one that lingers as a deep fear in the heart of anyone who dares to walk this path. Does self-reliance mean I must be alone forever? If I stop pleasing people, if I stop conforming, if I become so thoroughly myself that the world finds me strange and difficult, am I destined for a life of proud but miserable isolation? This is the fear that the Homo Jabbar comment so wisely pointed out, and it is a fear that Emerson addresses directly. The answer lies in a crucial distinction, the distinction between what Emerson calls society and what constitutes true, authentic, soulful connection. For Emerson, society is a conspiracy. He wrote, "Society everywhere is in conspiracy against the manhood of every one of its members. Society, in this sense, is the herd. It is the collection of conventions, of joint stock companies, of unspoken rules and expectation that seeks to grind down every individual into a predictable, useful, and manageable unit. The relationships within society are not relationships between souls, they are relationships between masks, between functions. You are useful to me, I am useful to you. We share the same opinions, so we feel safe together. We validate each other's personas. This is the world of networking events, of polite but meaningless small talk, of friendships based on convenience and mutual conformity. And this world, Emerson says, is a world of profound loneliness, even when you are in a crowded room. To be popular in this world is to be popular for being a person you are not. It is the loneliest victory imaginable. The path of self-reliance will absolutely cause you to be rejected by this society. You will lose friendships that were based on you being a compliant, agreeable mirror. You will be cast out of groups that demand absolute conformity of thought. You will fail at the social game because you will refuse to play by its shallow rules, and this will be painful. This will feel like a great loss. But what you are losing is not real. You are losing illusions. You are losing chains that you had mistaken for embraces. and in losing the false you create the space for the true. Emerson was not a hermit. He was married, he had children, he had deep and abiding friendships. His philosophy is not a prescription for isolation, it is a prescription for a different kind of connection, a connection that is infinitely deeper, more real, and more nourishing. A self-reliant individual, one who is securely anchored in their own being, no longer interacts with others from a place of neediness. They do not need your approval. They do not need you to validate them. They do not need you to complete them. And because they do not need anything from you, they are finally free to simply see you, to connect with the true self that lies behind your own mask. True connection, the only kind that matters, is a meeting of two sovereign souls. It is not based on mutual need, but on mutual recognition. It is when your deep, authentic self sees and is seen by the deep, authentic self of another. This kind of connection is rare. You will not have 1,000 of these friends. You may only have 1 or 2 in your entire lifetime. But that one true connection is worth more than 1,000 superficial acquaintances. So the paradox is this: you must first find the courage to be completely and utterly alone, to stand on your own 2 feet, to be your own source of validation, before you can ever be capable of true, non-neurotic connection. You must first become a whole, sovereign individual. Only then can you meet another individual on equal terms, in a relationship that is not a desperate merger, but a joyful, respectful alliance. You do not have to choose between being yourself and being loved. You have to choose to be yourself so that you can experience a love that is real. Now, look at your life. Look at the relationships you are clinging to out of fear of being alone. Look at the ways you diminish yourself to keep the peace. Are you ready to pay the price of admission for a true connection? Are you willing to lose the crowd in order to find your people? Are you willing to become yourself, not for the sake of isolation, but for the sake of a connection so real it is worth the entire journey? Comment below, I trust myself. This is your first and most important declaration of independence. It is the beginning of the journey back to the only person you have been trying to find your entire life. Do not let this be a momentary inspiration. This is a practice, a daily, hourly choice to honor the divine spark within you. The next video is essential. It will guide you through the practical steps of how to listen to your intuition and how to navigate the social pressures that will inevitably arise. The work is hard, but the reward is everything. See you there.